Welcome to the Daily Present with Johnny Ball. Today I'm specifically talking to authors or wannabe authors about how you can best promote yourself as an author. So a great strategy for helping you get people to know about your book and helping you get more of an audience and a following for the things that you do. So today is all about promoting with podcasts. Stay tuned. We're going to get into it after the titles in just a moment. Welcome to the Daily Present with Johnny Ball. Monday to Friday, talking about public speaking and presentation skills and the tools of influence and persuasion. Dance along now.
Wow! Come on, groove along. Let's say it, baby. I know.
Welcome to the show. So we're talking today about promoting yourself with podcasts, especially if you are an author. This is something you should definitely be considering. Now, as a podcaster myself, one of the things that I can tell you is that podcast hosts are always looking for great guests. And there are a lot of people right now who are just trying to get on podcasts, probably for the same reasons that they might want to get on talent shows on TV, whether they've got talent or not, whether they've got expertise or not, they're just trying to get on podcasts. And so maybe some podcasters are okay with that, but I think generally that's not going to work out too well. But for people who do have expertise and for people specifically who are authors, being an author is probably still one of the number one best ways to make yourself a key person of influence, as Daniel Priestley often talks about. So having that book and getting it promoted and into the hands and eyes of the right people is super important. And there are undoubtedly specific podcasts that are going to help you do that the best. Some of them have maybe small niche followings, and some of them maybe have much bigger followings. And you should be thinking about getting yourself onto as many of those as possible. One of the biggest reasons for this is that podcasts are an ever-growing source of information for people. The audiences for podcasts are consistently increasing as more and more people are shifting over to the podcasting format. So if you're not using podcasts as part of your promotional strategy for yourself right now, and this probably doesn't really just apply to authors, this could apply to anything you're doing that you want to become more known around. But if you are looking to do book tours, especially in our age of COVID and pandemics and not being able to do so much in-person stuff these days, that podcasts are a great way for you to be getting out there and getting the message out and into the eyes and ears of all the right people. So start looking at the kinds of shows that you might want to be on. Do some research. A great place to get yourself onto is matchmaker.fm. This is not the only site for hooking up guests and hosts for podcasts, but it is one of the best that I've used, and undoubtedly probably the majority of my guests come through that particular site. I do recommend you checking it out. It's a really helpful resource, and you can set up a free profile there as well. But what I will say to you is this: do not just send out blanket copy-paste invitations to the shows. Actually show them that you've taken a look at their show, maybe even listen to an episode or so, just to get a sense of the actual show, so you can talk to the host, that you actually know who they are, what they're about, and what their show's like. And that's going to give you a much better introduction. Yes, it's more work than just sending out your copy and paste or getting an assistant to do it, but it's going to pay dividends in the long run. And also, I'd say do it yourself. Don't get your assistant to reach out saying, I think you'd be a great guest, or my client would be a great guest for your show. Do it yourself. Send a personalized message. And by all means, have your assistant find the shows for you, but then check it out yourself and send the host a personal message. You're going to get a much better response when you do that. And I say that as a podcast host who will often decline people who haven't checked out anything about my show and check to see whether they would even be a good fit or not. So it does make a big difference. It certainly makes a great first impression with the host as well, that shows them that you actually have taken an interest in them and their show. Get yourself a strategy. Decide how many you could do a week and month, and start getting yourself a strategy in place to at least do one a week. Aim to do one podcast a week as a guest. Some of them range from 15 to 20 minutes up to 45 minutes, an hour and a half or more, depending on the show and the popularity and the kind of audience that they have, which means you might be doing anything from rapid fire interviews to long form in-depth interviews, taking a bit more of a deeper look at some of the things that you're doing. Having a book to go on there with is fantastic. It gives you an opportunity to plug your book and maybe even give people an opportunity to access a few chapters for free, or some other thing that's going to allow you to get people onto an email list. Give a promotion, give a giveaway to your shows that you go on to as well, so that they can access that for their audience and you can bring them in to become your audience as well. Should you start a podcast as an author? Look, I'm not going to say no, don't do it. But what I will say is, please understand that podcasting is a lot of work. And so it's much easier to leverage the podcasts that are already out there as a guest and get yourself promoted on as many as possible than it is to start building up your own podcast and trying to get the audience in for that. And you may still find yourself using a similar strategy to make people more aware of your podcast, as I do. So I use podcast guesting mainly as a tool to help me promote my shows and get myself out there so that people can go and check them out, because podcast listeners are more likely to go and listen to other podcasts that they like the sound of. And that can be a really good tool. But for authors, it's fantastic. I love bringing authors onto my show. And if you are a nonfiction author and your stuff is anything to do with coaching or to do with public speaking or tools of influence and persuasion, you could be a good fit for my show. So get in touch. But otherwise, find the shows that you feel most connected to. If you are writing fiction, even then, it could be a good thing for you to do. There are plenty of shows that talk about fiction as well, or particular genres that could be relevant to you. And go and get yourself on those shows and talk to people about your writing and putting stuff out there. I'm going to be looking at creating some more resources for authors as well, in terms of putting together maybe a bit more of an official strategy for how to get yourself on podcasts and how to put that stuff out there. So look out for that. I'm going to post that up on my website soon for you, and I'll probably mention it in the shows again. So check out the daily feeds if you get the chance to, but also check out the Daily Present on podcast networks, because you'll be able to find any past episodes up there as well, and I'll let you know when that's coming out. In the meantime, later today, I'm releasing a new episode of Speaking of Influence. That's going to be speaking to Tracy Lamoury, who is a PR agent, and she is an expert in getting great public relations. She gives some really good tips that you can do for free to help you boost your PR and get more knowability. So authors and coaches and anyone alike, if you want more PR and you want some of the free stuff and get yourself seen on major media networks as an expert in your area, then you are going to want to make sure that you check that show out. And that is Speaking of Influence, and that will be out later today. Next week, I will be releasing a new episode of the Points of Change podcast, so you can look forward to that too. The episode on Monday is going to be with Carrie Spranzi, and we're talking about what happens when life hits the fan. That's all the stuff that's keeping me busy. I hope whatever you're doing, you have a fantastic Easter weekend. I'll look forward to connecting with you again next week on another Daily Present. See you then. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to like and subscribe, and make sure you follow me on social media. Check out my other shows, Speaking of Influence and Points of Change. And wherever you are, have an amazing day. Time to get back to work.